What's up, everybody? It's Jay Nanda, San Antonio Metal Music Examiner for Access.com, coming to you from downtown San Antonio, Fitzgerald's Bar, on a Friday night where Gemini Syndrome is about to headline here at the bar with 9 Electric, the other LA, local Slow Like Fire, and I have the pleasure of being here with, I don't know, don't want to make any assumptions, but I would say the better half of Gemini Syndrome, of course, vocalist Nordstrom, drummer Brian Medina. How you doing, guys?
Good, man.
Welcome back to San Antonio. How you doing?
Wonderful to be back.
Psyched to be here?
Yes, sir.
Ready to go? It's kick-ass. Well, they're going to be headlining, like I said, tonight, a week from tonight on August 19th. Memento Mori, their second full-length album, will be coming out. Just to start, we'll get to that in a second, but just give me a sense of how the band's feeling right now on the road and going into tonight's show. Aaron, I'll start with you.
We're good, man. We're about halfway through, a little over halfway through this run. Kind of hitting our stride. Everybody's feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Brian, things going for you?
I mean, we're just out there, wheels are greased, and we're just rolling right now. It's going.
Awesome. Well, like I said,
Wheels are greased.
well, like I said, the album comes out in a week. I've been giving myself a crash course for, I want to say, roughly 3 weeks or so. This is a kick-ass album. If you like the band's first full-length, Lux, which came out in 2013, I guarantee you, you're going to love this one, Memento Mori. I don't speak Italian, but I'm guessing, since the name of the tour is Remember We Die, and I believe your latest single as well, kick-ass video, is that Italian for Remember We Die? Latin. Okay, I knew it was something like that.
Not English.
Although there is,
Right.
there is an interlude with the Latin title.
Okay.
Yeah,
Italian time.
So who came up with that? What was the line of thinking? Who wants to take credit for the naming of the album and the whole theme of it?
I mean, we came up with the whole trilogy Latin thing on the last album. So when we settled down on Lux, we already had the next couple lined up. So we have our chess pieces all situated, ready to go.
Yeah. And Brian, or Aaron, as far as the songwriting and some of the tunes on there, is there any of them that stick out for you as personal favorites early on that all these people out there, your fans, are going to get a taste of starting next week?
What's come out so far is kind of an overview of the whole record. The whole record, Remember We Die, is about that, remembering immortality and taking advantage of the time we have in this consciousness for the better. And, no, I think they all have their own character, their own uniqueness to them. When we were recording, every song that we finished was my favorite song.
Yeah.
Until we finished another one. That was my favorite song, and so on and so forth, until we were done with the record.
Right.
Then you listen to them, and they're all your favorite songs.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing on there I'm like, oh man, I wish we had a better song than that today. So, and I don't want that to sound like cocky or arrogant. I mean, it's just true. Like, I love them all. So.
As good as your first album was, I mean, like I said, I've been listening to the new one for 3 weeks. I count my lucky stars being able to do that. So I've grown a little partial to the new songs. But as is the case with a band, whenever they show up in a city and the album hasn't come out yet, I'm curious, as far as tonight, will you be leaning the set list more heavily towards the songs that the fans know from the first one, or is there going to be a good mix of the two?
There's a mix. It's not a 50-50 at this point, but everything we've released, like whether it be lyric videos or actual videos, will be played. You know what I mean? So everything that somebody's had a taste of so far,
Yeah.
we're able to put in. But it'll be geared towards what people are familiar with.
Yeah.
But I think we're chomping at the bit for next week.
Yeah.
So we can start bringing some other new material.
Absolutely.
We're excited.
I got a confession to make. Sometimes I find myself walking around my house, like kind of trying to do my best vocal impersonation of you on Anonymous and that sort of thing. Sometimes I bust that out on camera, but I won't do it right now.
I was going to say, let me hear it. You brought it up.
Now I'm drawing a blank, but... Do you ever find yourself in the back seat when you know you should be driving a car? Something like that. For Anonymous. I'll be glad to help you out, but I don't want to take it away from you. Anonymous, Remember Me Die. But the thing is, for me, it's not just the singles or whatever has been released. I think right now my favorite might be song number 5, Inception. Great mix of headbanging and melody in that song. Sorry Not Sorry is another favorite of mine. You guys are going to get to know Say Goodnight, a tremendous ballad, in my opinion. Brian, for you, let me ask you the same thing. Any particular song that means the most to you or sticks out right now?
Oh man, I mean, it's just like what Aaron said. Every single time we finished a song, that you get wrapped up in it, and there's not one song on here that I would be willing to part with on this album.
Cool. Well, I mean, just to talk about, give the people out there a sense. There's a lot of people out there that may be catching wind of Gemini Syndrome for the first time by watching this interview. A brief synopsis, as brief as you can. the relationship between you two guys, because you kind of are the quote-unquote elder statesman in the band, for lack of a better term, but also just how the band has been going on for the last 5 or 6 years or so. If whoever wants to give a little history as to how Gemini Syndrome formed.
We met in late 2009, really through mutual friends in Los Angeles. We'd all been out there for some time in different bands, kind of looking for a new project, and had mutual friends, and they kind of helped us out, put us together, and then we just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And it's evolved over time. We lived together for years and years, and like on and off the road.
Yeah.
So if we weren't going to get along at this point, we've already run the gauntlet in that. So
Yeah.
I think we know each other really well. It's become family to us.
Talk about the latest additions to the band, because I know when you're, I know for you guys, you've been at it for so long, working hard from the ground up. To most people out there, you might qualify as a semi-new band, even though to you guys, you may not feel that way.
Sure.
But when you have lineup changes so early on, is there ever any self-doubt that creeps in and go, oh man, we just put out one album, we already have lineup changes? Was it a chemistry thing? How are things feeling now? What was the mindset from the two of you guys going forward once that was made? Because I'm telling you, the product is going to be, the proof is going to be in the pudding when you hear Memento Mori come out. But as far as from a band standpoint, how would you describe that whole process?
Life happens, you know what I mean? Like life happens. We both, all of us in this band, have been in numerous other bands. We've been doing this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Just there's events that are going to transpire that lead people on different paths, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So I think Brian and myself and AP, found ourselves in the crossroads coming up with the second record, and decided that there was no way we were going to quit. There was no way we were going to stop. We wanted to try to start something else again. There was too much invested in this, not only on our end, but from the end of the fans too, that have put a lot of energy and love into this.
Yeah.
And so it was almost like for all of us to keep going. As far as bringing Daniel and Charles and have brought a really fresh new perspective, some new energy, and they've acclimated themselves and become part of the unit. I think it's stronger than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So,
Aaron, how would you describe yourself how have you evolved as a vocalist and a songwriter from early on in your career to what's going to be put out on the final product next week coming out?
I mean, I'm older for sure, so I've experienced more life. But then like working with the Churcos and just being on the road successively for years now, you start to learn what works and what doesn't. Learn how to push myself to try things that I wouldn't normally think to do because of the Churcos and being in the studio.
Yeah.
Working with this fool over here. Like, he always pushes me, and we push each other quite a bit to kind of grow and get to that next precipice.
What was the major difference in the making of this record, either recording-wise, songwriting-wise, setting-wise, wherever you chose to make it from Lux?
Well, on Lux, it was our first album, and I think with a lot of bands' first albums, that takes many, many, many years just to get to there. And so, after getting to the point where we had the songs and we got signed and we started touring the album, that whole process, was over almost 5 years, and so when we're going into the second album, we had learned everything that we had needed to learn from all those experiences, and we had worked with Kevin on the last album, which was a huge learning process, and we were able just to go in really, really prepared, and so when we started writing the second album, we had all this pent up, we hadn't written anything over a couple years. Yeah, so we just dived in and we just jumped in and we started writing all this stuff, and it just like flowed out of us, and we had everything done within several months, and
as opposed to several years.
Yeah.
And then like the time frames just get smaller and you get more streamlined. The same with the recording process. Like looking at Lux, it took us 16 weeks to record that record. And we did this one in like 7. Wow, less than half the time. Just because of knowing the producers and knowing each other and knowing ourselves as musicians and getting more comfortable, was able to just kind of get through it quicker, I guess.
How much of a live history do you guys have with San Antonio? I mean, have you played here before, or?
Yeah,
We've been playing here since we started touring.
Any favorite venues or memories from previous experiences? Anything that sticks out that you might like about this area, other than disliking the humidity? I'm sure for this time of year.
Humidity, for sure. I sweat a lot anyway, but we've always had good experiences in Texas. The crowds here are always something pretty unique. There's something about Texas, even compared to the rest of the country. That's not to take away from the rest of the country, mind you, but there's a certain breed in Texas fan that it's just what it is, man. They're incredibly intense, and like they love their music, man. That makes it easy for us to get on stage, I think, and throw down the way that we try to do when we want to. It's like a mutually exclusive feedback loop.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm waiting with bated breath to find out, hopefully in a couple weeks, whether or not I'm going to be covering the Houston Open Air Festival in about 5 weeks' time, September 24th and 25th. 35 bands filling up the home of the Houston Texans football stadium, NRG Stadium. Gemini Syndrome is going to be one of those 35 bands on September 24th. I believe you just played my hometown, Chicago, the festival. How was that? And just your feeling about festivals in general, particularly here in the States, where a lot of people would say we lag behind Europe and that sort of thing, but you guys being a part of this roster, it's going to be headlined by Alice in Chains one day, Avenged Sevenfold the next, Slayer, Chevelle, Deftones, a whole bunch of bands are on there, plus these guys. That's got to be you got to be psyched about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your feeling about festivals in town, and how was Chicago?
I mean, I think that the U.S. festivals are kind of taking some notes from Europe and starting to create these kind of like 2-3 day festivals where people are going to camp out and hang out for the whole time. We've got to do quite a few of them around the country. And Chicago Open Air was great. That's a hometown for me. We were up there, and we played early on a Sunday, but weather permitted. The storms let up, and they pushed us back about a half an hour. And we came out to just a sea of people. And we had a great time.
So since I'm from Chicago too, I got to ask you: Cubs or White Sox? Don't care. Not a sports fan.
No, I grew up being a sports fan, but it's like, why would I root against my hometown?
Exactly, you like both. You're one of those few that likes both.
I got to go to Old Comiskey, New Comiskey,
Awesome.
Wrigley Field.
That's kicking.
I've seen them all, so.
Awesome. Anything else you guys would like to say to either people here in Texas coming to see the shows, or anybody else where your tour is headed?
We'll be there.
Short and sweet, that's all it takes.
Excellent.
Well, we're going to let these guys get ready for the show. Like I said, Gemini Syndrome headlining here in San Antonio at Fitzgerald's Bar tonight. A week from tonight, go pick up Memento Mori, a kick-ass album, take my word for it. It's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. Awesome. Aaron Nordstrom on vocals, Brian Medina on drums for Gemini Syndrome. Kick-ass band, go check them out. So for Gemini Syndrome, just chain on to San Antonio Metal Music Examiner for Access.com, reminding you, don't hang them out to dry, hold them up high.